And I'm Alan Dale from Gale Force Winds. It's an absolute pleasure to be here at DEFSEC 2024. Great podcast, great conversations that are starting. Thanks to our good friends from Cisco for sponsoring this event. Always great to have Al Dillon on the show. Al, you've been on many times. Catch us up on what Sapper Labs is up to these days.
Cool. Well, it's always good to see you, my friend. So Sapper Labs, as you know, is an intelligence and cyber defense company that's delivering both products internationally in the context of commercial intelligence in the OSINT world, open source intelligence. And we also do cyber defense and intelligence work that's specialized for Canada in the context of government engagement and some specialized critical infrastructure clients. So, you know, what's happening? Well, take a look around us. I think the world is a spicy place, right? As we sit here today, you know, the things that are going on in Israel are escalating significantly. The Southeast Pacific and its collaboration with multiple nations against Western democracies is also a big threat in the world. And fundamentally, there's been a persistent engagement in our research communities, in our governments, and all facets of our industries from a strategic competitive perspective to undermine, gain from, attack for future reference, maybe even sit and lurk within the systems that we have today for future gain, and whether that be in times of combat or et cetera. But it's an interesting time, brother. You and I go back a long time, and as professionals in the domain, I don't think either one of us can deny that, you know, we're on the border of what I would definitely call a global conflict, and then I would suggest that from an electronic perspective, we're already engaged in a persistent engagement, a conflict with you know, the nations that are trying to weaken the democratic processes, whether it be elections or others. And so Sapper's in the middle of a lot of this, from a disinformation, counter-disinformation, so what we call cognitive warfare. We're doing some interesting projects in that domain to help the country and help others understand what are the tactics, techniques, and procedures that the adversaries are utilizing. And yet, I would say to you, with all that awareness and all those things, I think while the rest of the world is marching, i.e. preparing for conflict and for a strategic, whether that be a full-out conventional warfare or pockets thereof, I don't see the same behavior within the leadership of Canada and the infrastructure of the supporting bureaucracy that's supporting it in procurement, et cetera. So while we say we're going to step up and spend the money, we're not really doing that. I think it's superficial and on the face. So I don't say that to be critical of specific leadership or anything of that nature. I guess it is in that way, but I'm talking about it from an education and awareness perspective, that getting up on a podium and making announcements about intent and then actually executing are two different things, right? And so, you know, as we sit today, you know, and I speak on behalf of my compatriots that are currently commanding these forces that are understaffed, under-equipped, you know, under-ammoed. I mean, even in the basic sense of ammunition, we are not prepared to defend Canada, you know, in the way that we should. And so I think we're underperforming at the core elements of what are traditional conventional warfare, and obviously that extends to our area in the digital domain. We don't have a mindset where we think we're already in a conflict. I think there are certain groups that are doing good jobs. We have some very smart people in Canada within our security agencies and within the defense portfolio that do get it and are working on trying to circumvent all of these challenges and obstacles to funding and to execution through procurement systems. But they're doing it against headwinds, right? And so, you know, you're a sailor, you get it, right? If I got a tailwind that's going to get me there, I'll get there faster, right? And when the world's marching around us and we're sauntering, right, sort of against headwinds, you know, fighting it, I question whether or not we're really ready, right? And so I think a time has come for maybe a refocus on the national security agenda and commitments, real execution to the 2% that we have for NATO. And while it's been said, I think execution is a different level. As I sit here right now on the show, here's a perfect evidence. The TD budgets of all of the respective clients that we share for all those that are here in the show and I walk around and I see 1 or 2 uniforms from the local commands, and that's it. There's nobody else, right? So none of the buyers for the Ukrainian agenda, none of the buyers for the support to the munitions agenda and the American collaborations, et cetera, the uniform, the operators, et cetera, are here because they've all been told by the leadership, you have no budget, so you can't travel. So that's just a reality check, right? And so we in the business are operating within that environment too. And so I feel like as a small business, an innovator, an operational, company, that we're facing those same headwinds at the bold face with the operational community. So you can imagine, and we have a free voice. Imagine not having the ability to have a free voice and being part of the apparatus that cannot speak, and being under-equipped and seeing where we're going. It's probably a scary time for some of the folks, right?
Al, you've laid out what I wouldn't describe as the challenges. I would more aptly describe them as the reality of the situation that we're in. But understanding them, and let's look at them as you say, headwinds, to me that creates an incredible opportunity for a tailwind. And so, yeah. What does the tailwind look like in your eyes?
Yeah, no, thanks for that, and thanks for the sort of the steer to that. I think, we are at SAPR and all of the folks that I represent, honorably tremendous people. They are doers and they're problem solvers, right? And so I see that within, the uniformed service and within other pockets of government as well. And so there are those pieces that are out there, like I said, that are working through it. I think the opportunity is to actually have a national security strategy that is supported, right? That's structured and that sees a collaboration of the necessary agencies and public safety and defense and policing and various others coming together to really address the digital domain in which I work, right? Mm-hmm. That's a big thing. So you got to be going somewhere with purpose. And so I can see an opportunity where, new cybersecurity strategy that's supposed to be released and may not make it before, the current mandate of the government's out there, but I hope it does. I know that it's sitting in the winds. It should be released, right? It should be released before you have a change in government or if the current government gets reelected. I think that there are things that have been done, and for whatever purposes, I'm not sure, maybe political or otherwise, haven't been released. So we should do that. We should release what's already in the winds and get that going, because that will augment our focus on this domain. On the rest of it, my friend, I think we need a change in the culture and the understanding, and I believe the people in Canada understand and appreciate this. Like, the agenda around us is pretty spicy. I'm not sure the same sense of urgency exists within the leadership of some of the domains. So, it may be an interesting time. Canadians will decide where we go in the future here, and you never have a mandate on national security alone. Mm-hmm. National security, nobody's really won seats and won leadership through national security, but they certainly lost them. Mm-hmm. So if there's a motivator out there, what should happen is that if there was ever a time for us to get serious about the execution against the 2%, the current leadership, has an opportunity to follow up what it stated, right, and do that. So I'm hoping that they will. There's all kinds of tactical things within the procurement agenda. One of the big things that I think that we're focusing on, where there's a big challenge, and I sit within the Defense Industrial Advisory Group with privilege, right, thanks to CADSI and the Canadian Defense Association. I get to sit and work with some very smart minds on the procurement challenge, and I think we need to move with a sense of urgency on that. I've been there about 13 months now, and I think we can turn it from an advisory group to an action group. We have deputy ministers there. We've got, assistant deputy ministers of various entities. And I think we can move within those policies that already exist to build a sense of urgency. So those are good. Case in point, one specific example, the entire digital domain. So in the current procurement cycle, if you go and buy digital or military equipment, at best, the procurement from the startup of a major crown procurement to the end would be about 6.25 years for any piece of equipment. Well, if you take that in the digital domain with the advent of AI and all of that, you tell me what's going on 6.25 years from now, brother. I can't, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen. I know general trends,
Yeah.
et cetera, but the advent of AI and what that's doing, even in the intelligence world and the threats and the countering of that, there's significant changes, day to day, never mind,
Yeah, I was gonna,
month to month, never mind,
yeah.
multiple years. So the procurement agenda has no way to procure an umbrella agenda or umbrella supply arrangements, et cetera, especially in this domain. I don't think we should be publishing it globally. We should have exclusivity around on trade agreements and stuff of that nature, where we're doing unique things for sovereign capabilities in Canada, so Canadians can be informed by Canadians through Canadian eyes, rather than buying a feed or borrowing from an adjacent country or one of our Five Eyes friends, to get our intelligence, that sort of thing. We need our own set, right? And so in this domain, I think we need a procurement vehicle, an umbrella agenda, et cetera, that addresses it. That's mandatory. We have to do that, right? And in the context of innovation as well, because I think it directly impacts our strategic ability in the international level to compete at innovation levels that affect all industry through dual use purpose, of technologies and stuff of that nature.
Do you see, I mean, to use sort of your words here, we're not on the doorstep of a global digital contact. We're in the middle of this thing.
Yeah.
We're in it now. Whether we realize it or not, we're in it. And our procurement, our ability to be agile is not there on any front, let alone that one. But do you see maybe that as being the great opportunity where we're going to be forced to be very agile in procurement through the digital domain, and then that pulls the rest into a faster process?
Yes, I think that is one of the opportunities that's before us. I also think that within certain agencies, and I won't name them, whether it be in the defense cycle or in the security agenda, there are actions ongoing that are recognizing this, right? Recognizing the shortcoming. And so it's early stage, but I would suggest to you that the collaboration, like the big problem here is that everything I'm talking about in the digital domain operates on commercial infrastructure globally, right? It's internet, right? And it's unregulated, right? So it's also a very difficult environment to work. And within privacy and within certain groups, like certain sections of Canadian society, we have laws and regulations that apply to how we can monitor people and do certain things, et cetera. So we have to operate within that. When we look at the open internet and we look at our adversarial activity and what they're doing to disinform, to attack our democratic institutions, et cetera, our policies hinder us, right? And or our interpretation, probably is a better word, of law and policy are hindering us in areas where we shouldn't be hindered, where we actually do have the platform to counter and to engage in protecting Canadians. And I think I'm seeing light in that channel. And so what I would say to you is that the engagements, and so I'll come back to the point on commercial as well. What's really important is that all of this operational platform, it's not like I'm sitting on a battleship and in an area where I'm commanding an area of operations and I've got air control, subsea, everything. It's all in my control. It's an open platform that's global. Yeah. And so if I'm going to operate within that community, I need to think differently than traditional ways of, engagements in war and stuff of that nature. And so to do that, I need to have a necessary collaboration with the industry and industries that drive the internet and that operate on the internet, telcos, etc., big tech companies, etc. We need to have special relationships that are built prior to the time when we actually need them. They got to be persistent, right? And so we need a collaboration between government and industry in that regard to protect the best practices, create the best practices, and protect the best possible, or get to the best possible outcome that we can do to protect our assets.
Al, what's an ideal client look like for Sapper Labs, and why should they pay attention to you?
Yeah, well, thanks. So now we're working with the Department of National Defense and very specialized groups, right? And so we appreciate that. It's a tremendous place to innovate, right? And to create leading edge cloud and sort of on-prem solutions, et cetera, that are specialized for the purpose, mission support, and mission things that we do. We also build commercial tool sets from that knowledge that help protect people while they're conducting, whether it's a journalist or whether it's a regulator, et cetera, that's out there. So we have multiple walks of society that are in regulatory environments, investigative community, law enforcement, defense, et cetera, that are utilizing our tools gained from these best practices to be able to conduct on the open internet so that they're protected from the malicious actors that are around them. So we continue to work in that domain. We continue to try and push what we can commercially. But at its heart, Sapper Labs is a Canadian company built for sovereign protection of Canada, consisting of many veterans and many smart technologists that care about the state of our country and our democratic principles and how those project globally. And so at the end of the day, anybody who cares about protecting democracy, true democracy, and the search of truth, right? I mean, when you look at what Sapper's all about, it's transparency and unbiased truth, right? And so when I talk about those comments I made earlier may come across as critical of specific leadership and stuff. It's not. It's about the real state of affairs, the unbiased truth, right? And so that's who we need to be. That's that is the company. And as we go forward, I look to protect industrial players within the defense industrial base and the critical infrastructure base of Canada that are targets for adversarial activity, that draw economic drivers that we need to protect, and obviously collaborate with the government of Canada to do so, right? And that also includes the protection of government of Canada because of our specialized operational knowledge on adversarial activity around the world. So I think in a nutshell, that's it. And so we care. We're definitely focusing on the higher order of things in Sapper Labs, what the adversary is doing and how to counter that. And so we're looking for people that are like-minded and truly trying to protect their people, their organizations, et cetera, in that regard. When they're operating around the world, right, in conflict zones or potential conflict areas of risk, right, and we're great at measuring that risk, quantifying and measuring that risk, and then coming up with strategies to mitigate and resolve. So,
Al, always a pleasure to have you on the show. I always enjoy your perspective on things. You're a straight shooter. You lay it out as it is, and not only do you show the sort of the complications that might exist, but you show us a pathway to get there, and I think we need to pay attention to that, pay attention to those pathways and start opening them up for the benefit of the entire country. Thanks for being on the show.
Always a pleasure. Thanks, buddy.